terms of a public comment. But, Jeff, stand by, if you will. I want to bring in now Bob Litt. He is a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and former General Counsel for the Director of National Intelligence. Bob, thank you so much for being with us. I know you, like us, are still reading through this, but could you give us your first impressions?
So a couple of thoughts come to my mind. The first is that Michael Cohen lost his gamble by not agreeing to cooperate fully. Typically, when somebody agrees to cooperate, they agree to a full debriefing by the government. They tell the government everything, and the government then comes in at the time of sentencing and says this person deserves a substantial break for cooperation in the way that Mueller did for Michael Flynn. Michael Cohen didn't do that, and he gambled that by cooperating on his own, he would get a substantial break in sentence, and that doesn't appear to be the case. The Southern District of New York's memo does say that they think he should get some credit. And so they are, while they don't recommend a specific length of time, they do suggest that he should get a sentence somewhat lower than the guidelines range, which is guidelines ranges in the range of 4.5 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. But they seem to suggest that the recommendation of the probation department, which was 3.5 years, might be an appropriate sentence for him.
Yeah, I'm just going to read right from the memo. It says the credit should not approximate the credit a traditional cooperating witness would receive, given, among other reasons, Cohen's affirmative decision not to become one, as you pointed out. What was his reasoning there? Why did he not become a full cooperating witness?
Well, what he said was that he was afraid that if he became a full cooperating witness, he wouldn't be sentenced until the end of all the various legal proceedings, and he wanted to get this over with and get on with his life. Mm-hmm. If you read between the lines of the Southern District memorandum, you might come to the conclusion that he did not want to, in fact, be fully candid about all the things that he had done, which he would have had to do if he had fully cooperated, because the Southern District says he was not willing to talk about other criminal activity that he might have engaged in. One of the things that this means is that he's probably never going to be used as a witness by the government in any case, because they won't put him on the stand if he hasn't been fully truthful to them.
So, Bob, what position then does the Mueller memo put a judge in? Because it seems to essentially say his crimes are serious, yes, but his cooperation was significant. It almost seems as if the special counsel's office wants to soften the blow a little bit.
I would not go so far as to say that. First of all, I would assume that there's been some coordination between the Southern District of New York and the special counsel's office on what they're saying here. And I think the special counsel is very careful not to step on the Southern District's recommendation in any way. They say only that whatever sentence is imposed on Cohen in their case, mm-hmm. which is a separate false statement prosecution, they would agree to have that run concurrently with the other sentence. And the fact of the matter is it might well have run concurrently anyway. The guidelines range for a simple false statement is fairly low. I think it's 0 to 6 months. And so I think Mueller is being very careful not in any way to interfere with the Southern District's recommendation.
Bob, I want to get into the memo from the special counsel's office in just a second. But first, I want to ask you, as all this relates to the Manafort memo, we're being told that it is being allowed to be filed under seal, but some redacted material will be released. Does this mean we won't be able to see as much as what we'd hoped?
Yes. I think that as he did with Flynn, Mueller is making very clear that he's not interested in establishing a public record. He's more interested in protecting his investigation. The fact that there are going to be redactions here suggests that there are matters on ongoing investigations to which Manafort's lies relate. But we'll have to see that when we get the redacted memo. I understand the court has ordered a redacted memo to be filed, but that hasn't been filed yet, at least as of a few minutes ago.
I do want to get into some of the details, though, of this memo, because I think we're getting a window into some of the Mueller investigation, into some of the details that we hadn't had before. Some of the talk about I'm going to quote right from the memo, that Cohen spoke with a Russian national who claimed to be a trusted person in the Russian Federation who could offer the campaign political synergy and synergy on a government level. I mean, some of this is... It's about as close as we've gotten to what Mueller must be diving into. The person told Cohen that such a meeting could have a phenomenal impact, not only in political, but in a business dimension as well. And, of course, this is referring to the Moscow project, because there is no bigger warranty in any project than consent of, and then in brackets, the president of Russia. What do you read here?
Well, Tanya, you skipped a sentence there, which is a critical sentence, which is the defendant recalled that this person, the Russian, repeatedly proposed a meeting between individual one, who's President Trump, and the president of Russia. And that's the meeting that's being referred to there. So it's clear that the Russians were making efforts to reach out to the Trump campaign and offer varieties of assistance. What we don't see in here is the other side, which is how the Trump campaign reacted. We do see that if you a little further down, it says Cohen provided relevant and useful information concerning his contacts with persons connected to the White House during the 2017-2018 time period. But we don't really see in here whether there was a positive reaction to any of this from the Trump campaign.
Right. Although it does seem that, like you said, the overtures from the Russians were, sort of more wide-ranging than we had originally thought, and seemed to be, pretty forceful.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right. So, Bob, please.